In this class, we shall say about the religious institutes. This is the second title, title number 2, as the religious institutes, Canon 607 to 709. So we know about the religious life. It is the most traditional form of consecrated life which arose in the first centuries of the church. Is the most traditional form of consecrated life started in the first centuries of the church and which has been perpetuated by the religious institutes, religious orders and congregations, which has been perpetuated by the religious institutes. Religious institutes are religious orders and congregations. Religious life is distinguished from other forms of consecrated life. Religious life is distinguished from other forms of consecrated life. How they are distinguished? By special dedication to the worship of God. They have more time to spend for the Lord, praying for the people of God, for one's own needs and for the needs of other people. So by special dedication to the worship of God and to prayer. For example, Holy Mass, Liturgy of the Hours, fixed times of prayer in common community prayers. Comparing to other faithful, those who are leading the family life, they don't have much time to spend in prayer. So we have religious. So don't avoid coming for prayer and all. So not only for us, it's the responsibility to pray for others. So Holy Mass, Liturgy of the Hours, fixed times of prayer in common, etc. Secondly, by the profession of counsels by means of perpetual or at least definitive public vows. By the profession of counsels by means of perpetual or at least definitive public vows. So if not the perpetual vows, they have to renew before the time expires or gets over. Thirdly, by fraternal common life. By fraternal common life. The religious must live in a legitimately constituted religious house. The house should be lawfully erected by the competent authority. So the religious must live in a legitimately constituted religious house under the authority of the superior. Under the authority of the superior. Canon 607, paragraph 2. by the public witness of the Beatitudes, by the public witness of the Beatitudes, by means of a certain separation from the world. By means of a certain separation from the world. Though they live in the world, but they are not of the world. Okay. They detach from the world, and by their special way of life, they give witness, public witness to the people. Canon 607, paragraph 3. So, all of these aspects are regulated by the particular law of the institute. So, about all these things are mentioned in their own particular law, in their constitutions. What you have just mentioned are there in their own each institutes. Canon 607 and the Catechism of the Catholic Church, numbers 925 to 927. Religious houses, next point, religious houses or religious communities. Canons 608 to 616. The institutes of consecrated life arise as associations of those arise as associations of those who feel themselves called to live the consecrated life, according to the Spirit and the rules determined by a founder, according to the Spirit and the rules determined by a founder and approved by the ecclesiastical authority. By a founder and approved by the ecclesiastical authority. So, if any faithful wants to live a consecrated life, naturally he is inspired by the Spirit and he should present the rules and norms to the ecclesiastical authority, and the ecclesiastical authority approve, and he can live the life he and his followers as an association. In the first place, there is the initiative of the founder. In the first place, there is the initiative of the founder. That is then accepted and recognized by the authority. That is then accepted and recognized by the authority, which canonically erects the institute which canonically erects the institute and approves the rules which define its specific features. Approves the rules which define its specific features. So any institute comes into existence, institute of the consecrated life comes into existence by the initiative of the founder first. Secondly, he should present the norms of the institute to the ecclesiastical authority to be recognized. And if the ecclesiastical authority accepts and recognizes, then the institute comes into existence. So thus there are two elements in this. So what is said already, the initiative of faithful who intend to live the consecrated life in a given way. Okay, initiative of the faithful, initiative of the founder. Okay, so once he begins, he becomes the founder. So initially it is the initiative of the faithful. Second one, the intervention of the hierarchy of the church. The intervention of the hierarchy of the church, which evaluates, approves and watches over the charism and the law of each institute. That is the responsibility of the hierarchy, ecclesiastical authority, to evaluate, approve, watch, examine whether they are truly living according to charism or according to their charism or no. Furthermore, all institutes are subject to the supreme authority of the church, right? Whether it is a diocesan right or a pontifical right, all the institutes are subject to the supreme authority of the church. And their individual members have the Roman pontiff as their highest superior. The highest superior in the church is the Roman pontiff. They should be submissive to him. Canon 590. So under this we have erection of the institute or house, religious house. Erection means the recognition that the institute represents a legitimate and stable form of living the consecrated life. Erection means is a recognition that the institute represents a legitimate and stable form of living. Legitimate, lawful and stable, continuous. Legitimate and stable form of living the consecrated life, approving its own norms and conferring juridical personality on it. Approving its own norms and conferring juridical personality on it. If any house is legitimately erected, it gains the juridical effect. It becomes a juridical person. Since the consecrated life is a publicly recognized form of Christian life, since the consecrated life is a publicly recognized form of Christian life, the institutes enjoy public juridical personality. The institutes enjoy public juridical personality. Do you remember what is public juridic person? Yeah, private juridic person. And next, basic distinctions. Some distinctions in the religious communities. One, religious communities are gender identified. Religious communities are gender identified of women or of men. Right? So institutes of consecrated life of both men and women. However, the canonical norms are the same for both kinds of communities, though there is the distinction between men and women institutes of consecrated life. They have the same canonical norms. Canon 606. Another distinction is they are lay if their proper role does not require the exercise of sacred orders. Lay members, lay brothers, they are called lay if their proper role, their proper life does not require the exercise of sacred orders. Clerical if their basic purpose presumes the exercise of orders. Clerical if their basic purpose presumes the exercise of orders. So this is the distinction, right? Lay and clerical. Some are lay religious, some are clerical religious, depending on the exercise of sacred orders. Canon 588. For example, preaching friars must be priests, but not those who dedicate themselves to the sick and to the schools. Those who do the school ministry, hospital, medical ministry, they need not be the priest. And those who preach are to be priests. And those who celebrate Eucharist must be priests. In practice, what is important is, whether the institute has been recognized by the ecclesiastical authority as lay or clerical. whether the institute has been recognized by the ecclesiastical authority as lay or clerical. So in the beginning itself, the ecclesiastical authority will recognize whether it is a lay congregation or clerical congregation. Obviously, all feminine institutes are lay. All feminine institutes are lay. So another distinction is communities are diocesan or pontifical. Communities are diocesan or pontifical, depending upon whether they were established or approved by a diocesan bishop or by the Pope. Depending upon whether they were established or approved by a diocesan bishop or by the Pope. Canon 589. If it is approved by the diocesan bishop, it is a diocesan institute. If it is approved by the Pope, it is a pontifical institute. The diocesan bishop can, with the permission of the Holy See, the diocesan bishop can, with the permission of the Holy Spirit, erect institutes of consecrated life in his diocese. So, diocesan bishop, with the permission of the Holy See, what I said? Sorry. With the permission of the Holy See, erect institutes of consecrated life in his diocese. Then the institute is of diocesan right. If the diocesan bishop erects an institute with the permission of the Holy See, that is called diocesan right, and it depends on the bishop. And it depends on the bishop. When an institute is erected by the Holy See, when an institute is erected by the Holy See, it is of pontifical right. If the Holy See directly erects an institute, it is of pontifical right, and it depends exclusively on the Apostolic See, and it depends exclusively on the Apostolic See by means of the Congregation for the Institutes of Consecrated Life. It's a congregation for the Institutes of Consecrated Life. It depends upon the Apostolic See by means of the Congregation for the Institutes of Consecrated Life. Canon 589. So next point is external control. So all of these institutes are controlled. External control. The establishment of religious communities and the approval of their constitutions and any changes in them, their mergers and their suppression, are subject to the authority of the church's hierarchy, of the church, either episcopal or papal. In other words, either diocesan or pontifical. Canons 579, 582 to 584, 593 to 595. So how the religious institutes are controlled once they are established, and they require the approval of their norms or rules or constitutions, and if they want to change, simply they cannot change. Okay, even in their chapter they cannot change, only the Holy See should approve. So any change in them, and if the congregations by certain circumstances depend, if they are not able to continue, so they can merge together, join together. So all these happen with the permission, approval of the Holy See. If it is of the diocesan right, by the diocesan bishop; if it is of the pontifical right, by the Holy See. Communities are subject to the Pope, and their individual members are to obey him. As we have seen earlier, all the communities are subject to the Pope, and their members are to obey him. Canon 590. The Roman Pontiff can exempt religious orders from the authority of diocesan bishops. He can exempt religious orders from the authority of diocesan bishops. Canon 591. The superiors of the communities are to submit regular status reports to the Congregation for the Religious in Rome. The superiors of the institutes, of the communities, they have to submit the regular status, statistics, and important matters should be reported to the Congregation for Religious in Rome. Canon 592. Just take Canon 580. There are some terms we should know its explanation and importance. Canon 580. The aggregation of one institute of consecrated life to another is reserved to the competent authority of the aggregating institute, always safeguarding the canonical autonomy of the other institute. So here aggregation, what does it mean? We will see. Canon 582, fusions and unions of institutes of consecrated life are reserved to the Apostolic See alone. To it are likewise reserved confederations and federations. See, so many terms: aggregation, fusion, union, federation, confederation. What does it mean? So all are, so fusion or union or aggregation are reserved to the Apostolic See alone. So first, aggregation. One diagram I will give you so that you will understand. So mathematics. So aggregation. Institute of a consecrated life. One institute of a consecrated life. Another institute of consecrated life. So one is A, another one is B. Okay, giving the name instead of telling particular congregations. So aggregation is one institute of consecrated life and another institute of consecrated life coming together. So they share the common patrimony and spirituality and the rules and regulations. So that's called aggregation. So something is formed by adding together. With regard to aggregation, they have the spiritual bond and affiliation between the institutes. So second one is fusion. Institute of Consecrated Life A, another Institute of Consecrated Life B, both are becoming C. So they remove their individual identity and become another Institute of a Consecrated Life. So that is called fusion. And third one is union. One institute of consecrated life A, another institute of consecrated life B, and B is completely joining the A. So institute of consecrated life B loses its complete identity and becomes united in the another institute of consecrated life called A. That's called union. And federation, what is that? It occurs when certain institutes sharing the same nature and spirit. Federation occurs when certain institutes sharing the same nature and spirit join together for common purposes join together for common purpose, while each institute retains its autonomy. While each institute retains its autonomy. For example, congregations of Benedictines, they have federation. Cistercians, the monks, monasteries, they have the federations. Confederation are groupings of federations into a still larger structure. Confederations are groupings of federations into a still larger structure. For example, Confederation of Benedictine monasteries, Confederation of Canonries of St. Augustine, so with regard to aggregation, fusion, union is coming together, totally reserved to the Holy See. So autonomy and authority. Next point. Each religious community possesses a precious heritage which it is to cherish. Every religious community possesses a precious heritage and which they have to cherish, maintain. What is the heritage? The vision and intent of the founder regarding the nature, purpose, and spirit of the group and its own healthy traditions. The vision and intent or intention, the original intention of the founder regarding the nature of the institute, its purpose of existence of the institute, the charism or the spirit of the group, and its own healthy traditions. In other words, its own communal identity. The common identity of all the members that is shared by everyone in the institute. Canon 578. Each community has its own autonomy of life and governance. Each community has its own autonomy of governance, autonomy of life, which preserves its own identity, and appropriate discipline. Canon 586. So each community or the institute draws up its own constitution. Each community draws up its own constitution, and in the constitution they make mention of its heritage, governance structures, membership, formation criteria, its own understanding of evangelical counsel, its own understanding of the evangelical councils, etc. So everything they mention in their own constitutions. See, in addition to this fundamental document of constitutions, the community also draws up secondary or supplemental codes other than the constitution. They make or drop secondary or supplemental codes or rules of life or particular laws which are more easily changed. Canon 587. So it is not that easy to change the constitution frequently. Okay, it requires the approval of the Holy See. But with regard to secondary codes or supplemental code or rules of life, they can be changed. The chapters of the Congregation Institute, they can modify the rules. The second code or supplemental code. In this particular law, the proper charism of each institute is defined together with its autonomy of organization and government. Although every institute is subject to the ecclesiastical authority, the institutes enjoy ample autonomy, freedom. for everything they are subject to the Holy See, right? But at the same time, they enjoy ample autonomy in their internal daily life. With regard to internal organization of the institute, they enjoy their freedom, autonomy. They have their own hierarchy, provincial, local superiors, members, and some are given other responsibilities. So with regard to those responsibilities, internal organization or a hierarchy, the Holy See doesn't interfere. So in that sense, they have their own internal autonomy, freedom. So the institutes enjoy ample autonomy in their internal daily life. They have their own hierarchy, superiors, chapters, etc. Their own divisions, provinces, houses, monasteries. So every institute is divided into province, and province is divided into houses or monasteries. Their own divisions, their own apostolic works, their own patrimony, etc. With regard to these, the institutes enjoy autonomy, freedom. The elected superiors and deliberative assemblies of the communities have authority to direct their activities and govern their members. So in the chapters, in the provincial chapter, they discuss the life and activity and apostolate of the congregation or the institute, and they make certain rules and regulations. They change the mode of life as according to the change of time. So in that sense also they have autonomy. Canon 596. And what is consecrated life? We had seen those who join religious communities pledge to follow Christ by living the evangelical counsels of chastity, poverty, and obedience, right? Which are gifts from the Lord and observed with the aid of His grace. So, with the gift of the Holy Spirit and with the help and assistance of the grace of God, the individuals live their consecrated life, especially the evangelical counsels of chastity, poverty, and obedience. Canons 573, paragraph 2 and 575. So what is the counsel of chastity? It entails consistent sexual continence in a celibate The counsel of chastity entails consistent sexual continence. It's the control of sexual feelings. In a celibate or unmarried state. Matthew chapter 19 verse 12, 1 Corinthians chapter 7 32 to 35, Canon 599. Poverty implies being poor both in spirit and in fact. Poverty implies being poor in spirit and in reality, in fact, in reality. Being dependent and limited in using and disposing of material goods. Being dependent and limited in using and disposing of material goods. Matthew chapter 6:20, Matthew chapter 6 verse 20, chapter 8 verse 20, 2 Corinthians chapter 8, 9, and Canon 600. Thirdly, the counsel of obedience means submission. Submission to the directives of one's religious superiors. Submission to the directives of one's religious superiors. John 4:34, (5:30), and Canon 601. So Canons 599, 600, 601. These three canons speak about the three evangelical councils elaborately. The common life of the religious community is to be familial. Familial is a family. Life in community. Religious community is to be familial and mutually supportive of the members in fulfilling their vocations. They must live as a family, mutually supportive to one another in fulfilling their vocations. Acts 4:32 and Canon 602. So next one is structures and governance of the institutes. Structures and governance. Canon 608 to 704. So under that, religious houses. Religious houses. Religious communities are organized according to houses. They are organized according to houses, that is, dwelling places where members live together. Where the members live together is a religious community or religious house. That is, dwelling places where members live together, or at least to which they are attached by assignment. Or at least to which they are attached by assignment. So here the assignment is the appointment. So here at Janampeta we have a community, religious community, but one may be remaining in Eluru. So there is no community, but because of some special studies he may be living there, but he will be attached to the community of San Francisco. So for the monthly recollections and local chapters and all the community matters, important community, daily he may not be participating, but other official programs of the community he will be following here. Houses are formally established by the appropriate community authority. So community authority is a provincial. he will establish the houses, and members are obliged to reside in the house to which they are assigned. All those who are appointed should reside in that house or community. Each house has a superior. Each house has a superior. The diocesan bishop must approve the establishment of a religious house in the diocese, and that approval carries with it certain other prerogatives. So, if the major superior is erecting or establishing a house in the diocese of Eluru, he should get the approval, permission of the diocesan bishop of Eluru. And once it is officially erected, that religious house will have some prerogatives, some rights, which are there. The right to an oratory where the Eucharist is reserved. Every religious house has an oratory. That is the right of the religious community to have a oratory. So the bishop will give the permission. The right to an oratory where the Eucharist is reserved. The right to exercise the apostolic works proper to the community. Apostolic works of the religious institute. The right to exercise the apostolic works proper to the community. The right to establish their own lay associations. The right to establish their own lay associations. So these are the prerogatives if the house is erected, established officially by the institute's authority with the approval of the diocesan bishop. So Canon 608 to 611, Canon 608 to 611, 665, 733, 312. And after the religious houses, then next superiors. Who is the head of the religious house? Superiors. So, houses are grouped together into provinces under a superior known as a provincial. If the individual houses are grouped together, put together, that will form into a province. And province will have a superior, and that superior is given a name, right? What is that? Provincial. Houses are grouped together into provinces under a superior known as a provincial. The supreme moderator or superior general holds authority over all of the provinces, houses, and members of the entire community. In the province, who is the head? The provincial. In the institute, for the whole of the institute, for the whole of the institute, general. So the canon law gives two names: supreme moderator or superior general. Some will use the term general minister. That's only Franciscans, general minister, and others will use superior general, provincial superior. Others will use, but we use a provincial minister. And another word for general is supreme moderator. So according to their own proper law, constitutions, they can use the term. Okay, it should be mentioned in the constitutions. These two levels of superiors, who are the provincials and supreme moderators. These two levels of superiors, provincials and supreme moderator, are called major superiors. Are called major superiors. They and their vicars are to exercise governance over the community provincials and supreme moderator and their vicars are to exercise governance over the community in accord with the community's own rules. So they govern the institute according to the community rules, the constitution. Canons 596, 617, 620 to 622. These superiors are elected by the members of the community for specific terms of office. These superiors are elected by the members of the community or the institute for a specific terms of office. So some institutes, provincial 3 years, general 6 years. For some other institutes, provincial 4 years, general 6 years. For some institutes, provincial 6 years and general also for 6 years. Or for some 12 years. According to the constitution, they have to make mention of it in the constitution. Accordingly, they are elected by the members of the community. The superiors have real authority with regard to the members of the community, but they are to exercise it in a spirit of service. So provincial or the general, they have the authority over the members of their institute. They have the authority to exercise the power, but they have to exercise in a spirit of service. Canon 618. They are to build up a community of sisters or brothers in Christ, caring pastorally for their needs. They are to build up a community of sisters and brothers in Christ, caring pastoral needs, caring for pastoral needs. Canon 619. Superiors are to visit the houses under their charge and attend to the members individually. So pastoral visitation. So some congregations once in 3 years, some congregations twice in 3 years in term, they have to make pastoral visitation. That time they have to meet the members individually. Canon 628. However, they are obliged to respect the personal autonomy of individual members. So the superiors must respect, they are obliged to respect the personal autonomy, freedom of the individual members, provided they don't go against the life and charism, rules and constitution of the institute. The superiors should respect the personal autonomy of individual members. And they should not forcefully enter into their freedom of conscience. Canon 630. They should not by force enter into their freedom of conscience. Canon 630.